I never thought I'd see my HOA president screaming for help while half buried in a pit of manure on my farm. But there she was, Karen Bellamy, flailing, covered head to toe, yelling that I'd tried to kill her. That morning, as the sheriff's cruiser lights flashed across my fields, I realized justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it smells a little like cow crap. I've lived on this land my whole life. My mornings smell of hay, damp soil, and a little manure, the kind of smell that city folks wrinkle their noses at, but to me, it's peace. My farm sits just outside Maplewood County, right where the suburbs begin creeping into the countryside. When my parents passed it down to me, they told me, "Ethan, take care of this land and it'll take care of you." And it always has. That is until the HOA moved in next door. Karen Bellamy arrived about a year ago, bringing a storm in a floral jacket and a clipboard. She was the self-appointed savior of neighborhood standards. She didn't own a chicken, but she sure acted like she ruled over everyone who did. The first time we met, she stood at my gate pen in hand, telling me, "We have standards here, Mr. Walker. The smell from your livestock. Well, it's becoming a health concern." I told her calmly that my family's farm existed long before her cookie-cutter HOA ever did, and I wasn't part of it. Her smile froze tight, polite, the kind that hides a threat behind the teeth. "We'll see about that," she said. From that day, she became my personal shadow. I'd see her walking that tiny white dog along my fence line, pretending to be out for exercise while sneaking glances into my barn. Sometimes she'd stop, lift her phone, and start recording. When I waved, she'd snap, "Just documenting potential violations." I laughed the first few times. People like Karen thrive on reaction, and I refused to give her one. But her obsession didn't fade. It grew. She started filing noise complaints about my tractor, claiming the manure pit was an environmental hazard. I even found an HOA notice taped to my gate saying unauthorized livestock structures may result in penalties. I wasn't even part of the HOA. That didn't matter to her. She wanted control. At first, I stayed civil. I told myself she'd get bored eventually. But one morning I noticed something strange. A few eggs missing from the nesting boxes. Then a whole basket vanished from my porch. I thought maybe a raccoon had gotten clever until a jar of honey I'd left to cool also disappeared. Now I've never met a raccoon that could unscrew a lid. Still, I didn't want to believe it was Karen. Not yet. Then at the feed store, old man Darrell leaned over the counter and said, "Hey, Ethan, Karen's selling farm-fresh eggs down at the market. Same tan-speckled ones you raise. You supplying her now?" My stomach turned cold. Karen selling eggs. She'd once called chickens feathered disease bombs. There was no way she'd suddenly taken up farming. I drove home that day, hands gripping the wheel so hard they ached. That night I checked my supplies. Missing feed sacks, more honey, even a pair of pruning shears. The pattern was too clear. I sat in my kitchen staring at the empty basket on the counter, wondering if I was overreacting. Maybe someone else was sneaking through. Maybe I was just being paranoid after all the HOA nonsense. But deep down I knew. Karen had crossed the fence line. So I decided to stop guessing. I installed 2 motion sensor cameras, one facing the coop, the other near the feed shed. 2 nights later, I got the alert. My heart kicked when I opened the footage. There she was, Karen, tiptoeing across my property, wearing her floral jacket and garden gloves, clutching a wicker basket like she was in some twisted Easter hunt. She opened the coop, grabbed the eggs, looked over her shoulder, and slipped away. I watched that clip 3 times. Each time the anger boiled higher. I could have called the cops, but I wanted her to feel it, to feel the humiliation she'd tried to heap on me for months. So I made a plan. There's an old compost pit behind the barn where I mix manure and hay for fertilizer. It's deep, maybe waist high, and when it rains it fills halfway with sludge thick enough to trap a boot. That morning I shoveled and reshaped it, threw a few loose boards across scattered straw to make it look like a solid shortcut toward the coop. The kind of path a thief in a hurry might take. I set up the cameras again just in case. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, what if she gets hurt? What if she really can't climb out? Was I about to cross a line myself? My conscience whispered maybe I should just let it go. But then I thought about every lie she'd told the neighbors, every fake report, every time she pointed at my farm like it was filth. And I looked out the window at my hens huddled in the dark, their coop door reinforced because someone kept breaking the latch. That's when I decided, no, this wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. The kind of respect people like Karen never give until it's forced. 2 mornings later, around 5:30, my phone buzzed, motion alert. I threw on my jacket and boots, stepped out into the cold, and hid behind the barn. Sure enough, there she was, Karen creeping through the mist, same jacket, same basket. She muttered to herself like a cartoon villain, glancing around as she approached the coop. Then she stepped onto the straw-covered boards. Crack! There was a short scream followed by the loudest splash I've ever heard. I clicked my flashlight on, and the sight almost made me laugh out loud. Karen Bellamy, queen of the HOA, was waist-deep in manure, flailing, gasping, and cursing me between gags. "Oh my God, you tried to kill me," she shouted, waving one filthy glove in the air. "You set a trap." I leaned on my shovel, barely holding back a grin. "No trap, Karen, just a manure pit. You found it all by yourself." She screamed at me to call an ambulance. I told her I'd be happy to call the sheriff instead. "They'll want to see the footage," I added. That made her freeze. For a second, all the arrogance drained from her face, leaving only fear and a whole lot of cow dung. Then she whipped out her phone and started filming. "This man attacked me on private property," she shrieked. I almost clapped. She really didn't know when to stop. Minutes later, I heard sirens. She must have called 911 before I even showed myself. Perfect. When the sheriff's cruiser pulled up, 2 deputies got out, already pinching their noses. The Sheriff Harris was a big man with a mustache that probably had its own sense of humor. He looked at me, then at Karen, still stuck in the pit, dripping and furious. "He attacked me," she screamed. "He set a deadly trap to hurt me." "A trap?" Harris repeated, raising an eyebrow. "On his own land." I handed him my phone. "Might want to watch this before you file that report." He watched the video for about 30 seconds, then sighed so hard his hat nearly lifted. "Karen," he said slowly, "you do realize this shows you trespassing and stealing." "That's not me," she sputtered. "He framed me." The sheriff looked at her, then at the basket floating beside her. Full of my eggs, my cartons, my farm stamp printed right on top. He shook his head. "Looks like you framed yourself, ma'am." They hauled her out, one deputy laughing so hard he had to walk away. Karen tried to launch one last desperate story, claiming she was investigating animal cruelty. But between the timestamps, property boundaries, and about 50 witnesses online once the footage leaked, that lie didn't stand a chance. Within an hour, she was in the back of the cruiser, threatening lawsuits through tears while the sheriff handed me a copy of the trespassing report. "Don't worry," he said. "She won't be bothering you again." Word spread faster than wildfire. By the next morning, half the neighborhood had seen the video. Someone uploaded it to Facebook, captioned it, "HOA President falls into her own mess." It blew up. Thousands of views overnight. Karen deleted her HOA page by sundown. The next week, she quietly sold her house and moved away. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. I just walked my fence line that evening, breathing in the smell she hated so much. My hens clucked softly. My fields glowed gold under the setting sun, and for the first time in months, I felt peace again. I know what some people will say, that I went too far. Maybe I did. But when someone keeps taking from you your work, your dignity, your quiet, you reach a point where silence feels like surrender. So, no, I don't regret it. Because some lessons, some people can only learn the hard, dirty way. And that's the thing about respect, it doesn't always come clean.